Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. So today I'll be reacting to another compilation video that is going to make you question literally everything. So without further ado, let's go straight to the video.
There's something really strange going on in the US, and for the past few months, for some mysterious reason, there's been several videos popping up all over social media of people seeing what's supposed to be demon faces everywhere they go.
Hey, so today I experienced something that I've never experienced in my life before.
In this specific video posted by Chip Trachenfels, he explains that he had been working delivering products for a company and everything was going smooth until this happened.
As I do every week, twice a week, I make deliveries to the same guy. I've been doing it for 7 months. And it's the same guy every time I walk in. He's got a big garage with like a couple trucks in it. I walk in, I hand him his parts, we talk for a minute, I walk away. I go on my business. Today, I walked in, and he had his back to me, and he was working on his bench, and he must have heard me coming. I don't know, because I was actually pretty quiet, I thought, but when he turned around, I jumped and kind of grabbed my mouth like that because I didn't know what to think. And he laughed a little bit and he called me jumpy. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm just not feeling very good. And I handed him his part and I was like, hey, I gotta go. The reason I reacted that way is because when I looked at him, he was different. He didn't look like the same guy I saw every other time. First thing I saw was he had no color in his eyes. They were completely black. Like you couldn't even see reflections. It was just a black mass. And for some reason his ears were kind of weird and they had like this little point like that. I don't know what that was.
Whatever it is that happened to Chip Trachenfels that day, it creeped the heck out of him. And he goes on and explains that while talking to other people about it, some mentioned that there's a new disorder where you see demon faces everywhere you look.
I was talking to my friend and he sent me an article about them saying that a new disorder that's coming out where people are starting to see demon faces in people. And it got me thinking, if they're putting something like that out, could it be a disorder, or is it God is actually letting people see demons and they're just trying to make it look like we're crazy?
Chip goes on and explains his own theory on what could be happening, and even though he could have developed this rare syndrome, I believe it's not the case. He uploads a part 2 and a part 3 and explains that the man that he had seen was actually dead.
I have a massive update. I went into work this morning. My boss told me because Monday is a holiday, he's like, why don't you go ahead and do your Monday route today? I had to stop at that guy's company. And I Googled his name. I have more questions now than I did before. Because the first thing that popped up was his face. And underneath it, it said obituary. That he died in October of 23.
So whatever it was that Chip saw that day, it wasn't because he had this new syndrome. It was because the man was dead. But how do we explain the full-on black eyes and the pointy ears? Was he seeing ghosts, or was it something else entirely? But it doesn't stop there. It seems as if more people are seeing the same thing. Check this out.
Listen up, y'all. There are beings that is walking this earth, and they are not human. I just came from Kroger's. I just got off of work. I went to go pick up a few items.
I Love to Giggle Too, an internet profile who is used to uploading comedy videos, recently posted this very bizarre experience she had inside of a supermarket. She explains how she was in the bread aisle just picking up some products when all of a sudden she noticed this person staring at her. A bit freaked out, she moves to another aisle, but this person moves with her and keeps staring at her. And this is what happens.
While I'm in the international aisle at one end, this guy comes around and he's at the top of the same aisle. I see him still looking at me. Now, mind you, there's a couple of things that I need to get out of that aisle. So the first part of the aisle, I grab what I need to grab and I go about midways down. He's at the other end. So he's staring at me still. So I kind of look at him and I go like, how you give somebody that type look? He's still staring. So I'm looking for what I'm looking for. I can't really find it because he's throwing me off because he keeps staring. Mind you, this man don't have nothing in his cart. He's not even turned to look at any food. He's looking directly at me.
Now completely freaked out, she decides to confront the man, and this is what happens next.
I turn to look at him. Y'all, when I tell you, this man stared at me and his eyes turned black. Everything in his whole eyeball, not just the pupil, but the white part, turned completely black. He looked, it said black, and then he walked away. When I tell you I left that cart sitting in that aisle, I didn't even buy nothing from Kroger.
Strange, isn't it? But what's even stranger is that all of this began happening after the eclipse, and there are more videos of it.
And I turn around and I see, seen somebody like kind of looking at me, and I was like at first I thought like maybe they like noticed who I was or something. Maybe they were like watching my YouTube channel or something. I thought it was like a fan. No, it wasn't. I look over and like their eyes and their eyes like turned really black, and then their face kind of got kind of distorted. I'll put a picture right up here for you guys. But y'all need to be careful.
They know people are waking up. They know people are being conscious around the environment. They know that people are aware of these entities. So the best way to cover that up is by calling it a disorder. But we know damn well that there is no such a disorder. And if you've watched the movie They Live, you'll understand what exactly is going on here.
Hello, TikTok. Fagger Freestyle here with another story time about the time I met a vampire. I tried to do this story the other day on live and it just did not work out. But anyway, I just decided to record a video. People have been asking me about the story, so here it goes. I'm a rideshare driver in New Orleans. So of course I encounter all types of people from all walks of life. So one particular ride was very interesting. Now, this was a couple of years ago when this occurred. And I'm going to tell you, for the most part, I remember what she said. I do not remember what she looked like. And there are some details that when the experience was over, like I had completely forgotten some things. But anyway, so I'm riding, pick up this passenger, and I remember our conversation. And the craziest thing is I can remember her voice. I can, and even as I'm telling you this, I can hear her voice in my head. And I can even picture like this part of her face around her mouth, her lips. I can see them moving as she's talking to me. And I remember her hand being on my shoulder. And I remember what it felt like when she touched me. But a lot of other stuff, it's like, was just completely erased. So I pick her up, and I do know that we were having conversation. I talked to many of my passengers, and she is telling me I have really great energy. So I told her thank you. You know, she asked me some things about myself, you know, nothing too private, nothing with too many details. So, you know, I just kind of gave her some general info. And I remember her telling me that she wasn't from here. That I do remember. And then she proceeds to tell me how much she loved New Orleans, how much she loved being there, living there, et cetera, et cetera. I do recall asking her where she was from originally, and all she told me was that she was from very far away. And it's funny again because I'm hearing her voice in my head as this is weird. And I've never shared this story with anybody, so TikTok, you're getting it first. She touched my shoulder at one point, and this is where things got really strange. She touched my shoulder, and I felt like I just froze. And even as I'm talking to you right now, I can distinctly remember that feeling of feeling frozen. And my hands were on the wheel because I could see my hands on the wheel. The car wasn't moving. And being frozen in that moment, I hear her voice, but not like I'm here talking to you. In my head, I hear her voice telling me, don't be scared, that she's not going to harm me. And then after that, we're moving again. And I remember kind of turning and looking like that. And she was sitting back in the seat and her hands were on her lap. And I said, what did you do to me? And she just smiled. And she says, I just leached some of your energy. And I said, what? She said, I just leached some of your energy. She said, this is going to sound crazy, but I can assure you it's true. I'm a vampire. She said, but I'm not the type of vampire that you've been taught about in books and movies. She said, those types of vampires exist, but they're very rare these days. I'm a vampire that feeds off of energy. And all I have to do is touch you to get it. She said, New Orleans is a great place for her and her kind to exist. And that there are quite a few members of their tribe, is what she called them. I think I remember this part of our conversation so significantly because I believe when she touched me, she implanted something in my mind, whether you want to call it a memory or a thought or an idea. But she gave me something of herself, probably, to where I can recall this portion of the interaction between us. Maybe she knew that eventually I would share the story with others and therefore maybe make it a little bit more acceptable for them to start, for her and her members to start presenting themselves. I don't know. I don't know why she even chose me for this. But she told me that there are vampires that survive off of good energy. There are vampires that survive off of bad energy. There are vampires that survive off of sexual energy. And there are vampires that survive off of blood. And New Orleans is the only place in the world where you can find members of all four of those vampire tribes. Maybe she wanted me to remember this portion of it as a warning. I don't know. But I know she wasn't lying just because of how I felt. And even now, it's crazy because I still feel like her hand is on my shoulder, which makes me wonder, when she touched me, did she create some type of psychic connection between the two of us? I don't know, but I think I need to end this. Anyway, I don't remember where I dropped her off at. I don't even remember dropping her off. The next thing I remember doing clearly was being in a part of town that I didn't remember how I even got there. And it was like 2 hours later. And I was just in a parking lot. Just in a parking lot. And I know it sounds weird, y'all. I think I probably shouldn't even recorded this. I probably shouldn't even be talking. I probably should not even be talking about this. I shouldn't.
There are so many people who've actually come up and given their side of stories and how they've met these vampires in New Orleans, and it's so messy. This is so unbelievable. Please do keep on watching.
A story about a time that you know that you saw something, but you don't ever tell this story because you know that no one would ever believe you. I don't think I've ever told this story before because I would sound like an insane person, but I know it happened. I want to be creeped out. I just watched the video of the girl, the Lyft driver in New Orleans, who says she picked up a vampire. I want more stories like that, but I'll tell you mine. When I was 7, my family was living in a suburb of Chicago, about 30 minutes southwest of the city. My parents were out. They went bowling every Friday night. So I know it was a Friday. Our babysitter, Maria, was over. She was a teenager, probably 16, 17 at the time, and my little sister was about 2. We lived in a split level. So my sister and Maria are downstairs and I'm in the kitchen. I was looking out the back window, honestly, probably waiting for our little neighbor boy to come outside because I had a crush on him and I was always running outside whenever I saw he would come out. But in our backyard, there was an apple tree, there was a lake, and then there was a fence separating our yard from the neighbor boy's house. It's dusk. The sun is pretty much set. And I see a black panther jump over the fence and come down, stand underneath the apple tree. It was so tall that its shoulders almost came up to the first set of branches. Jet black fur. And we had a house cat, so I know what the house cat size is in relation to this thing. This thing was easily 6 or 7 times the size of our cat. So I start calling for Maria, yelling at her to come up to the kitchen to see this black panther in our backyard. She was taking her time. My sister was crying and she was tending to her. I'm standing there mesmerized by this black panther, and it turns and it looks at me and it makes eye contact. And on its head, this thing was jet black, but on its head, it had a little patch of white fur just going right like this. And we just stare at each other for a good 5 seconds or so. I hear Maria stirring. She's coming into the kitchen, and as she's walking into the kitchen, the panther runs into the lake. I was there was a panther in our backyard. Maria's it was just a house cat. I'm no, it was a panther. Fast forward to later on that night, my parents still aren't home. I'm in bed. I hear our doorbell. It's probably close to 11 o'clock because my parents were still out. They usually came home around 1 in the morning. So naturally I hear the doorbell ring. I get out of bed. I go to the top of the stairs and I see Maria answering the door. And I'm creeping on the stairs, and she lets this man in, and he's wearing all black. He was very pale. And I hear him tell her basically that he was a traveler who lost his way and he needed to use our phone. It was the 90s, so people didn't have cell phones easily accessible, so he just wanted to use our landline. So Maria lets him in. He's using the phone. It's very muffled. I can't hear what he's saying. I remember the conversation, but I don't. That's where mine and this girl's stories are similar. So after he makes his phone call, he's turning to leave. He walks past the stairs. He looks up at me because I'm still sitting at the top of it, and I see on his head he has a little patch of white hair in the same spot that the panther had. And he looks at Maria and he goes, "Thank you for your help. It's really easy to get lost in the shadows." And he leaves. Now this man shook me. I could not sleep that night. So when my parents got home, I was still awake in bed. I ran downstairs. I told them all about the panther. They chalked it up to an overactive imagination, and they were it was just a house cat. You're just letting your imagination get the best of you. And I told them about the man. They were pissed. They were fuming. They fired Maria for letting a strange man into our house, as they should have. But yeah, I don't know. I've looked into it. There have been tons of Black Panther sightings all over Illinois, close to Chicago, and yet the Department of Natural Resources maintains that there are no Black Panthers in Illinois. So yeah, stitch this or let me know in the comments your story, because I know I'm not the only one.
Guys, this is my part 2 to my New Orleans trip, and we're going to talk about the vampires that I saw. So fast forward a bit into my trip, both of my friends got there and we decided to go out and walk Bourbon Street and just see what the nightlife was like. We ended up at this bar that had live music, and it was a pretty big space. I don't remember what it was called, I wish I did. But when you walk in, there's the bar on the side, and then this is what caught my eye at first. There was this table in the back right corner that a lot of people were sitting at, and they were sitting on top of the table and on the actual benches of the table. Their vibe was completely different than everyone else's in the room. It was just kind of, the only way that I can describe it, it was a still darkness. It was just kind of off. But there were these 2 guys in particular that caught my attention. One was this tall black guy, right, that was sitting on one of the table, very tall, and this other guy who was a shorter white guy, but they both looked very interesting. But I turned back towards the bar so that I can grab my drink and talk to my friend that was next to me. Tell me how, as soon as I turned around with my drink, he was standing there right in front of me. Like some Twilight shit. He started talking to my friend, asking where we're from, what we were doing. Now, one of my friend's boyfriends, who actually lives in New Orleans, was with us, by the way. But anyway, this vampire dude and his tall friend convinced my friends, not me, that we needed to go to this bar. I think that's one of the oldest bars that's in New Orleans. And they have this unlisted shot that you have to ask the bartender for that's not on the menu. And as we started walking, we noticed that we're getting further and further away from, you know, Touristville. And by this time, I really wish that I could explain it, but the vibes were just so weird. They were so weird. And I told my friends pretty much that it was a really creepy vibe. Like, why do we need to go all the way out somewhere else just for a shot, you know? And on top of that, their energy was just not normal. And my friend's boyfriend agreed with me. And I specifically remember like typing out a text on my phone. And as we were walking, I showed it to my friend's boyfriend. And I straight up said, I think they're vampires. And he just looked at me like with the most serious look, like, I don't know why he didn't say anything out loud. Like, I guess maybe he didn't want to seem like the crazy one. But this is where shit started to get real. So there has to be a part 3 to this because there's no way I'm going to be able to fit it. So I'm going to post it right after this one. Part 3, my New Orleans trip, vampires, let's go. We got to this bar that they wanted us to go to so bad. He ordered those special shots for everyone. Myself and my friend's boyfriend just kind of looked at each other like, I'm not drinking this shit. I don't know what's in this. So like we barely sipped it and then just kind of like chucked the rest. And after that, the shorter guy, he started holding a conversation with one of my friends, and this conversation was drawn out. Like I'm talking about 25, 30 minutes. But the conversation was only about her. Like her life, what she's doing. Every time she tried to ask him something about his life, he deflected it. Or it was something like 2 words, like very brief, back to you. Meanwhile, his tall friend didn't say anything to anyone the entire time. He was just sitting there off to the corner, like just there, blank-faced. And I noticed as their conversation kept going, the more drained my friend started to get. And then I was like, A lot of times when people think about vampires, they think about blood-sucking vampires, like freaking Twilight or, you know, whatever other TV show or movie. Most of the time, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist because I know that it does, but most of the time, these are energy vampires. And they literally suck the life out of you. And that's exactly what was happening to her. But they didn't want to hear me at that time. So after she started getting tired, all yawning and stuff, he tries to make his way over to me. And I had such a dominant energy when he came over to me because I'm like, you're not about to fuck with my energy. So I looked at him in the eyes the entire time. And every time he tried to ask me something, I reflected the question. I was like, what about you? And after about like 5 minutes, he knew that he wasn't gonna get anywhere with me. You can't play with me, I'm a witch. Fast forward, my friend started saying how she was tired. If we didn't do anything, she's just gonna go back and fall asleep. So when we left, they wanted to go to this 4-story like nightclub. But as we were walking there, I started telling them what I was feeling and what I knew, that they were freaking vampires. And then we decided to lose them when we got in there. Now, when I tell you guys, this place was packed like wall to wall, every floor. I think we went all the way up to the 3rd floor. I can 100% tell you that we lost them and that crowd of people because we were inside the building before they even got inside. So they wanted to go out on the balcony because they wanted to smoke or whatever. And I was sitting there telling them like, dude, like those guys were freaking vampires. That tiredness that you're feeling because they were draining your energy. Tell me how. 2 minutes later, I turn around and guess who's there? And this time it was almost with a smirk on his face. Like, oh, that's cute. You thought you lost me, didn't you? And somehow he knew what I was talking about before he even got there. He was like, so what were you saying to your friend? And proceeded to pick me up on the balcony.
Wow, that is crazy.
When you think vampires, you think New Orleans. But what if I told you there's actually a legend that says that the vampires were brought here on purpose? I'm Ghost Guy Brandon, and this is the legend of the Casket Girls. Now, these ladies came to New Orleans for the purpose of becoming brides to all the men out there, and they were called the Casket Girls because they carried all of their belongings in a large wooden box called a cassette, but we just called them caskets. Now, when the casket girls arrived in New Orleans, they were staying with the Ursuline nuns at the Ursuline convent, and all of their belongings and their wooden caskets were taken up to the attic that was already sealed for protection. Now, over time, the ladies found themselves in very bad situations and bad marriages, so the decision was made for them to leave. But it was at this point the nuns made a very shocking discovery, and one of the greatest legends in New Orleans was born. When the nuns came to the attic to retrieve the caskets for the young girls, they found that even though the attic was completely sealed, the caskets were wide open and completely empty. This completely terrified the nuns, and they searched that entire attic frontwards and backwards and found
What is this up here?
Well, what happened in there regarding the throat was definitely sickness. What happens in this entire structure regarding heat is beyond my realm of comprehension. All I know is that the final thing that is a universal experience for all people who come here is a very potent and overt sexual energy. There's some sort of bizarre combination of sick and twisted psychotic sexual death energy.
Because that's all they needed to deal with whatever was coming in. And now I'm getting horses again. Boom, boom, boom. Keep rolling. Ambulance, something hitting me, and grain. I'm on the heavy. I want to be done by 10.
In case you're wondering, this is where these casket girls used to live before it was turned into a club. So yeah, just keep watching.
Hey, oh, something kept up here. I'm having a little trouble breathing. I think, was this a residence? Somebody lived here.
There's a lot of things.
She loves it here. Oh my God, you have no idea what it's like to breathe. She loves it here. Looking out these windows, looking out the street. And we're so close to the river. That gets rid of all the smoke. And you can breathe here. But she really, really hates this place. I'm not picking up suicides. I'm not picking up anything like that. I'm picking up just...
You're picking up the heat because of the yellow fever.
She hates it here. She doesn't want to be here. Her husband's in the military. On the floor you come in, they determine where you're at. On the second floor, they heal you. On the third floor, you die. I'm picking up horse. I'm picking up some kind of moderate restaurant downstairs. I'm picking up living quarters above. I'm picking up...
You're picking up everything as a collage together, but it's actually separate. It's separate periods in time.
It's separate periods, but I'm getting it all at once.
It's all coming through at one time. Who is the girl with the gray dress and the apron on? She's got on a gray dress. She has long, kind of wavy hair, auburn hair, young girl, 16.
Woman in the military.
Right here. Take pictures right here. Come take a reading right here.
Yeah, don't worry about taking still shots right now. Just try to get the reading.
Can anybody hear me? Do you have a name?
It's 82.7. Go further up, Pamela. Just hold on so you don't fall because y'all are in the dark.
Alright. We were making too much noise.
78.4.
We were making too much noise.
Okay, John, go ahead of me.
It's getting warmer.
Did you get any phenomena whatsoever?
No.
Did you get any pictures of other people?
Live people?
Like the people here. Are you taking pictures with people in it?
No.
What are you doing here?
I'm working with no light whatsoever. I want to see if I pick up EVPs.
There's definitely something there.
Well, it's right here at the threshold. I'm telling you. I know where it is. It's making my skin literally, my hair is standing up. It's.
You're recording?
Yeah, I'm recording. Yeah,
I just got 2 orbs.
I can speak.
Well, you can speak. I can only video.
Feel.
Would you believe that this guy and this guy are the same person? If you live in New Orleans, maybe you've seen him around. Although if you have, I'd suggest that you probably run the other way. Either way, if you don't know who he is supposedly the vampire of New Orleans. Saint Germain was born sometime around the 16 or 1700s, but there are other reports of a man with these similar features dating all the way back to Christ. This man was a close acquaintance of figures such as Voltaire, Catherine the Great, Marie Antoinette, King Louis, Casanova, and so much more. There are some reports that even say that he was there when Jesus turned water to wine and was a part of the Council of Nicaea. There were reports of Saint Germain sightings all over Europe until 1784 when he died in Germany. But in 1793, he was seen in the crowd at the beheading of Marie Antoinette, which would have made him about 100 if that were true. But how did he get to New Orleans? In 1902, a man by the name of Jacques Saint Germain buys one of the most prestigious properties in New Orleans at the corner of Ursuline and Royale. It's said that he immigrated from France and was a descendant of Saint Germain. People who would party with him would often say they never saw him eat, only drink red glasses of wine. Jacques had been accused of attacking a young woman. The police gave him the courtesy of coming into the station the next day, but when he never showed, they decided to take a visit to his place. When they walked in, there was no Jacques. There was no furniture, no cups, no plates, no utensils, only wine glasses and remnants of something that appeared to be wine, until further testing determined that it was actually wine mixed with blood. In the 1970s, this man, Richard Chanfray, came forward as being the Count himself. He went on to tell a wild story that he was a vampire who had been living and just decided to roam and made his home in New Orleans. Although in 1983, Chanfray reportedly unalived himself in Saint-Tropez. Although if you're in New Orleans, there are sightings of a man named Jack likes to harass tourists from time to time and play tricks on them. And he kind of looks like Chanfray and Jacques and the Count. So if you're looking for your own interview with the vampire, you can call out for Jacques if you like. Meet him at the restaurant N7. Here they have a delicious plate of frog legs. Check the tag video for reference. Either way, this is a crazy story because this dude is really giving Lestat vibes. And Rice, what you know, girl?
This would actually explain why so many celebrities never age and so many celebrities who look alike with other celebrities in the past that lived in the past. It can't be a coincidence.
In this video, she speaks about why you should be careful when visiting New Orleans. Make sure you watch until the end and let me know what you think in the comments below.
Let's talk about it. So I've been seeing a lot of people on social media talking about, people need to be careful when they're visiting New Orleans during Mardi Gras. And yeah, you really do. Y'all just don't realize New Orleans, especially New Orleans, is like a spiritual playground, y'all. Y'all have to realize, just because y'all don't see this stuff on a regular, especially people that's not from that area, from the city and stuff like that, just because y'all don't see this stuff or hear about this stuff on a regular does not mean it is not true, y'all. I'm telling y'all, New Orleans is like a spiritual playground. And I get it, when you go to Mardi Gras, you're there to have a good time. You're there for the whole experience. You want to come back, you want to bring souvenirs, you want to try the new foods, you want to let any random person read your palms and record it, and, you know, for the whole aesthetic. But sometimes you just gotta think before you go into these knick-knack shops and you buying all these different objects. Y'all don't know what these objects have connected to them, y'all. And I get it, you know, sometimes y'all like, just live. Like, it's not that serious, but it is that serious when you go back home and there's something attached to you, or you don't know what's going on and why things are. It's some evil people in this world. And am I saying that all these people in New Orleans are evil? No. It's so many good people in New Orleans. And I'm not saying that all voodoo is bad. I'm not very, very educated on voodoo, but I do know voodoo isn't the same. All voodoo is different. There's so many different types of voodoos. And that's just something that I don't want any type of connection with. But when y'all going down there and y'all going in all these different knick-knack shops, bringing home all these different objects that y'all don't know nothing about just because it's cute, these little dolls and antiques, and like I said, letting people read your palms and getting your energy, it's crazy. I've been seeing all types of people talking about how they've been seeing these like vampire-like things, and I've heard a few different stories about the vampires in New Orleans and stuff like that. And they're not what you think, like the vampires with fangs and all that. It's the complete opposite of what you see on TV. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, if you see it on TV or you hear some type of creature on TV, it is real. Most of the time, it's real. They didn't just come up with these ideas out of nowhere. But it's not exactly what you think. It's not like how it is on TV. But that's for another topic. If y'all want me to talk about like vampires, real vampires, then I'll talk about that in another video. But yeah, y'all gotta be careful. New Orleans is like one of the most haunted places in the world. Home to Madame Laurie Laveau, the voodoo queen. Home to Madame Latterie. She's one of the most evil slave owners ever known to man. Like, this place has so much history, from all the different slaves coming there and bringing all their traditions and customs and religion to this one town. It's filled with so much history and pain and magic, y'all. And this stuff is real. Like I said, just because we don't learn about it that much here where we are does not mean it's not real. But if I was to go, best believe I'm gonna be prayed up the whole time, y'all. I feel like it's a place that everybody needs to visit. And I get it's fascinating, and I get a lot of this stuff is very interesting. But be careful when you're going on these ghost tours and these different graveyards and bringing back all these different energies and stuff like that. Because just because you haven't seen it does not mean it's not real. Because I promise you that New Orleans is just a place that I don't want to miss.
The funny thing is that every time they make new movies, they make sure they include some truths in movies, you know?
I've seen that story about that Uber or Lyft driver that met the vampire in New Orleans. That story made me think about a story that happened to me that was similar, but it was in Atlanta. This happened a while ago. I was super young, and the details of the stories don't show y'all how long ago this was. This was in a time where it was just becoming cool to meet people online. Like, you would meet new people on MySpace and be like, oh, they live in the same area. Shoot, let's hang out, let's chill, whatever. This was also during the time where I was on this spiritual, like supernatural kind of awakening time. And everything on my page was talking about like spiritual, supernatural stuff and whatever. So naturally, I would have interesting conversations with people who were like into the same thing. This kid hit me up who was about the same age as me, I think maybe a little bit older, and was asking me, hey, did you read about this? Did you read about this? Have you heard about this? And all the stuff he was talking about, I was like, nah, I never heard of that. Wow, whoa, it's crazy. So we would always have these crazy conversations until we got to the point where he was like, you should come hang out. I got some stuff I could show you, like, that I've done and that I've seen. You should come chill. I'm like, what? Yeah. This is about to put into perspective how long ago this was. So to get to his house, I had to print out directions on MapQuest, which was, at the time I was living with my best friend who's like my brother, and I used his mom's car so I could go. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with a friend or whatever. She was like, cool, whatever. So I printed the directions out, drove to the house. I pull up to this house, and it is a mansion, like the biggest house I think I've ever seen. And as the gate is open and he's walking down the driveway, he's like, what's up? I'm like, what's up? What do your parents do? Just kind of like, oh, yeah, they're into everything. They're not in town right now, whatever. When I tell you it was like a circle driveway, it had like Bentleys and like all kind of expensive cars in the driveway. And I'm just kind of like, nervous because this is the first time that I've ever been around money like that. We walk into the house through this huge ass garage, and the house has this weird feeling. It like feels homey, but feels expansive at the same time, like a warehouse. It was the weirdest feeling. I can't really put my finger on it, but it felt vast and at the same time cozy. This is where it starts getting. As we go through the house, each room is themed to like a different period of humanity. I'm talking like big suits of armor in one room, and then it's like Asian inspired stuff and ancient stuff. And I'm like, so do your parents collect things? Or at this point, I'm like, what's happening in here? We're walking through all these rooms, and we finally get to a hallway that looks just like any other house, any other hallway. His room was to the right. There was a restroom to the straight ahead, and then branches off to the left to other rooms and stuff. Normal. This is where it kind of linked to the other girl's story, and what made me think about this again was I remember the details, but I don't remember the details. Like, I remember we talked about socials, birth certificates. He was telling me how to use my brother's birth certificate to get him out of jail. Other kind of secrets about the country, the world, all kind of stuff I remember, but don't remember. I remember what he looks like, but I can't quite remember what he looks like. I remember what he sounds like. I remember what the room looked like. I remember what the bathroom looked like. And let me tell y'all about what I found in that bathroom. So this is what made me start going on a rabbit hole and researching things, because it was this big book. It was a huge, I don't even think I've ever seen a book this big, but it was like leather bound. You could tell it was really old. When I opened the book, on the first page were like these drawings, and it was these beings, and it was kind of like a family tree type thing. And the first one was saying like, this is this being, and then this is this being's kids, and then this is whatever. These beings looked like us, but pitch black. And these were drawings in the beginning. So the beginning of the book was drawings. They were pitch black, like the color black. All you could see was eyes. I'm flipping through the pages, and I'm feeling like I'm invading privacy. I'm seeing something I'm not supposed to see. And as I'm flipping through the book, it's saying names of what these beings are, who they are, like description of who they are. It was like biographies, but very short descriptions. And I can't really remember details, but I do remember as the book got further, it became less of drawings and more of pictures. And once it started becoming pictures, I got scared. I grabbed the book and I take it out there, and I'm like, what is this? What is this? What? He goes, oh, that's the book of Anu, the Anunnaki. It shows you who all the Anunnaki are up to this day. Some of humanity comes from them. It's kind of like a story of God and the angels and blah, blah, blah. What? Mind you, we had a full-fledged conversation after that. I remember I was there for quite some time after that, and I remember him explaining it to me, going through the pages and talking, but I don't remember none of that. It's like I'm looking at a memory on mute. I came to an end. I remember getting back into my car, and like immediately after I left, I called my brother while I was on the way, and I was like, you'll never believe this, blah, 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 because we were both on this supernatural spiritual journey. I'm like, he said this, da, da, da. My brother's like, I want to meet him. I want to meet him too. I'm like, yeah, I think, yeah, you can meet him too. In like hours, I've been gone for, I don't even know how long. And I'm telling him more and more stuff about the stuff I remember. And he's like, I want to meet him. I want to meet him. I'm like, bet, I got these directions I printed from MapQuest. Let's go tomorrow. I'm sure he's not going to carry his parents out of town right now. This is where it gets all the way crazy. So the next day, we followed the directions that were printed on MapQuest back to that same place. We get there, it's an open field. Nothing's there.
See, vampires in New Orleans is trending, and as someone who lived in New Orleans for 12 years and worked on Bourbon Street almost every night of those 12 years, and was around a lot of darkness there, I can tell you I met a lot of something. Vampires in particular. Anybody who told me they were a vampire? No. Did I meet the devil? Well, if you were around the early days of the House of Blues back in the day, you might know what I'm talking about. And I also met Michael the Archangel. Now, that's a story I've done before. If you want to hear it, let me know. But would it shock me if there was major supernatural and strange things going on? Have you ever been to New Orleans? No, not shocking. But I guess I never got the chance to meet someone who claimed to be a vampire. There's a lot of vampire fans there because of Anne Rice, and a lot of people who dress like vampires to look cool and to feel like they were, mysterious. But let me tell you something. The real people walking around New Orleans, they're a hell of a lot scarier.
I had a really, really strange experience back in October when I went to Boston and Salem just to basically go snooping around for Halloween. I needed to get some stuff. I knew something was gonna pop off because I'm in Salem, it's October, the veil is thin. I'm going there and I know it's gonna be some spooky shit. If you guys don't know, Salem is one of those places where you'll find practitioners who practice shit that you won't find anywhere else. You'll probably find practitioners in Salem and in New Orleans that you'll find some magic that's some deep underground stuff, the stuff that I talk about. You won't find that anywhere else in the country. You won't find it in Sedona, you just won't. You won't find it in California either. Well, unless you really know where to look for it. So we go to this place, and I want to give you the backstory because a few nights, literally the Thursday night, I remember this, the Thursday night before we went, and we went on a Saturday or a Friday, I had a dream that was very real. I was very much awake in my dream, and I remember being chased down by this guy. And I know exactly what this guy looked like. It was a very weird dream, but I felt his presence in Astral. And if you are an astral traveler, you know what I mean. So I was with this guy, this older dude, this guy was 40, 50 maybe, and he was totally hijacking my dream. And I was like, wait, I've never seen this person. This is such a weird dream. I'm stuck in this amusement park type of thing. And by the way, guys, I've never been to Salem before, and I didn't know what it looked like. Tell me how, when I got there on that Saturday, I walked into my dream, and this is not the first time this has happened, but my first question was, okay, why am I here? And then we're walking around, we're waiting on lines. I had to go there because I had to get some offerings for Mercury and the moon spirits. And if you guys ever want to do that, Hex is amazing. Amazing. I love them in there. Did you know you can get the black pullet as a candle in Hex? I don't know how it works. I always thought you needed to use the cloths, but the woman there said you didn't need the cloths. Anyways, so I was online at Hex, and I had to get a lot of stuff, guys. I gotta get pendulums, I had to get offerings for the planetary spirits, I had to get just a bunch of different things that I needed for around the house. So then next to Hex is this store called Vamp Fangs, and there was a guy that was standing outside of it, and I looked for a second, and then spiritually, me as a spirit, I felt like I recognized this person. And then it clicked that this was the guy that hijacked my dream. And I'm not saying that this is conscious. I would never blame anybody because people think that I hijack their dreams. I have a lot of clients that say that they see me in their dreams all the time. So none of this is conscious. It's all energetic. This guy doesn't know if we're a hole in the wall. Somehow our energies on the astral realm collided. And it's probably because I knew I was going to be there a few days after I had that dream. But it was weird. My guides were like, you got to be careful. And I'm always usually careful. I'm always usually paranoid. I grew up in the city, so I'm always paranoid. But I literally thought that what happened in this dream was going to happen in real life. That this guy was going to kidnap me or something and take me to this place again, and I was gonna lose my ex-fiance, and all of that stuff was gonna happen. So I literally told my ex, the guy I was with at the time, that I needed him to literally hold me. I was on a leash because I was so scared that this old ass dude was gonna kidnap me the same way he did in my dream. But it really got me thinking because When I talk about vampire rituals to you guys, I'm talking about the traditional version of it. I'm talking about the old school stuff, the stuff that they did in ancient Egypt, the stuff that they do in Haiti, the stuff that they do with the Aztecs. I'm talking about that stuff. I'm talking about real ritualistic vampire stuff. But we often don't think that people can literally absorb our energy, steal our energy, travel through astral, wake up in their bodies, wake up their spirits and travel and suck energy out of people with fear. The same way that we get sleep paralysis, people that are very spiritually advanced, whether in a good or a bad way, can leave their body during sleep or during astral, or even during while they're awake. They don't consciously even know that they're doing it, and they can mess with us and they can take our energy. And God bless this man's soul. I'm sure he doesn't know who I am from a hole in the wall. Sadly, that is what this guy did. Now, he didn't get any of my energy because I've learned throughout the years of having multiple sleep paralysis attacks, multiple attacks from many different entities that you guys don't even know exist. I know how to hold my own, guys. But there are real vampires out there that are not unalive and that are prowling the city streets just like that, and they will attack you in your sleep.
During Mardi Gras.
No, let's really talk about it, because it's not just about Mardi Gras. New Orleans in itself is such a history enriched, mystical, supernatural place because of just like the history of so many blends of African spirituality, the pain and the trauma from just different ancestors, such as like the slaves and like the huge slave trade that happened in New Orleans, and just the immense amount of just like melting pots of just different traditions and cultures that have come in and out of Louisiana, but New Orleans specifically. I've never really known why, but New Orleans has always been the most fascinating city to me. And I've been to New Orleans a handful of times, whether it had been for educational purposes or just strictly for leisure. Ironically enough, all of the times that I've been to New Orleans, I've actually not been for Mardi Gras, which is why I'm going to tell you all just some story times about just some of like the weird, witchy, supernatural things that I've either heard or I've experienced while being in New Orleans. And you know what's so crazy? Because like when you think of like things like magic and witchcraft and stuff like that, you think of like maybe like your mind goes to like Harry Potter or something something like that. Or maybe if you think of vampires, maybe you think of Twilight, or maybe you think of Blade or something like that. But let me go ahead and tell you that when it comes to witches, sorcerers, mediums, vampires, werewolves, those are real. And there's communities of them in New Orleans. I have a few different stories about my times that my friends and I have been to New Orleans and the stories that they've shared with me. But I'm going to try to give you just like a mini compilation of just different stories that I have encountered or I have had friends tell me about when visiting New Orleans. I had a conjoined birthday with one of my best friends, and so we had invited a group of our different friends from different parts of either like where we were living in California or just like different parts of the state, because I'm originally from Kentucky. And so we had friends like come out with us to New Orleans, and this was about like 3 years ago. And one of the stops that we wanted to go to is like we went to a vampire bar, and there's actually a couple of them in New Orleans, but we went to one, and it's exactly the vibe that you would think it would be. It was very dark. It's moody, like dim / just completely dark lighting lit by just things like different projectors, maybe like some soft smoke that's like on the ground. Not really sure where that was coming from. I'm sure there was a machine somewhere, but then again, who knows? But everything else is pretty run of the mill. Like there's just, there's a bar where you can get just different types of alcoholic drinks, but it's more so of like a lounge type of a vibe, this specific, vampire bar that we're talking about. Now, mind you, I had not seen any vampires like while I was there, but at the same time, I was also not trying to explore without a bunch of my friends. But One of my friends, though, who was on the trip, who I was doing the conjoined birthday with, she went to the bathroom. And so while in her time in the bathroom, there was 3 other ladies who were in this bathroom with her. And they kind of struck up a conversation because they saw her in the mirror. Now, mind you, my friend, she's like petite, blonde, pretty, and stuff like that. And so I don't even know why I'm laughing, because this is like dead ass creepy. But they had like these weird, like kind of piercing eyes. And one of them turned to my friend and had said, "Oh my gosh, like, you're so pretty." And she was like fondling her hair and stuff like that. And of course, like, my friend, she was just like, "Oh, thank you." And she was just like, and she had noticed that there was different teeth that were shaved down. And we're not talking about like the canine teeth. There was teeth that were like kind of filed down. And so they were talking about like how they were vampires. And they were basically, I'm not sure in what context of like what the vibe of when this conversation was happening, but one of the girls had turned to another one of the other vampire girls and said like, "Oh my gosh, like, isn't she so cute? She, like, we would love for you to kind of like be a part of our little clique." And the girl, who I guess is like the Regina George of this little clique, was just like turned to her, and she had like these like these very vibrant, like, blue eyes. Like, and we're not talking about like the natural tone of like eyesight or like eye color that you would see. It almost looked supernatural. And these could have been contexts, I'm not sure. I'm just going based on what my friend had told me. And they were saying that like, yeah, we're vampires, but like at the same time, like, we don't really go into like full detail about like, the different practices and stuff that we do. But we would love for you to come out and hang out with us for some time. And so my friend was saying like, "Oh, I'm with, friends. We're here just from out of town. We're just like having like a trip or whatever." And, but no, they were deadass trying to like recruit her to like be a part of their little like vamp gang, or maybe even be like an appetizer. I'm not really sure, but I thought it was really creepy. But those like things, like those, like, regardless of if it's like a real vampire, like what you would hear or what you would like see, like Queen of the Damned, Interview with the Vampire, like an Anne Rice novel or something like that, there are cults of individuals who do drink blood. It may not be in regards to like, biting someone's neck, but there are different ritualistic practices that these communities do have in New Orleans. It's an actual thing. Here's another story. So this is going to be about fortune tellers and mediums. So one of my friends went to go see a medium, and they went to a particular place where there was like psychics and stuff like that. And so she sat down with this like transgendered medium, and she had this medium basically, read her fortune as this any other. So this particular friend was having some issues in regards to her like parental life. And so there was things that were going on with like, it was like her father's like girlfriend or whatever. And, without going into too many details, like, it was just like not a great situation. This girlfriend was like a leech, and honestly was like leading my friend's like father down like a really dark path, right? And so she did not like this girlfriend, this and the other, and these are all things that were brought up during this reading. So one of the things that the medium had given her as a gift, is that she gave her a hex. Now, if you don't know what a hex is essentially like it's like a curse, like something that you can speak and manifest over someone's life to get a particular type of result. A hex is supposed to be implied to be something that's obviously going to bring misfortune and negative energy and events to someone's life. But she gave her this hex, and there was like different like ritualistic sayings and spells that were casted over this hex and was given to my friend. And so the instructions were she's like, you need to give this over to any individual, like basically like a hint to any individual. And whatever you manifest over it will happen to that individual. However, one thing that I will warn you is that you will have to be held responsible and liable for anything that manifests or comes from this particular head. Now, I want to go ahead and say this, that this particular friend of mine, they are not religious or not really spiritual in nature, but for whatever reason, they felt compelled to not only accept and sit with this medium, but also take this hex. And even if she didn't have like the real intention to actually give it to anyone in particular, it was the fact that she came in agreement with this particular ritual and this tangible item, which is supposed to be a curse. And now she is left, and now it's like leached onto her. So they leave this particular like medium, and then they go out amongst the the rest of their trip. And so they're like taking different photos. And one of my friends, they see that in all the photos that my friend who sat down with the medium, any photo that she's in, there's this little like gray kind of an orb thing that is present around in the photo. And it wasn't just one photo. It wasn't just a second photo. It wasn't because of the particular lighting. It wasn't because they were in some particular kind of a cloudy area. No, it was like a bunch of different photos that when my friend was in the photo, that orb was around. Not only did this freak her out, but then she also started to feel like there was just something heavy that was just on her spirit. And she really started to kind of like question what it was that she had in her possession. Okay, I'm running out of time. I really thought I was going to be able to like put all of this into one video, but comment below if you want me to go ahead and finish the conclusion of this. But all in all, I wanted to go ahead and stitch this video because it is true. New Orleans in itself, it is such a supernatural and spiritually charged city. And it's because of the history of just not like the slave trade, but it's just such enriched by so many cultures that dabble in so many different types of spirituality. Let me know if you want me to go into further detail. While there's a lot of vibrant and really fun times that can be had with New Orleans, like Mardi Gras and like Bourbon Street and things of that nature, there's also another side of New Orleans where it's very dark and sinister and a lot of like misfortunate and like traumatic things that have happened in history that have bled into just the overall pulse of New Orleans in itself. Now, in this particular story, I'm talking about my friend who went to go see this medium who gifted her a hex in which she was gifting her to be able to give over to someone else who she wanted to, put misfortune on. Now, remember what I said, that the medium had warned her and told her, like, while this hex is going to be very potent because there's a lot of like different spells and different invocations that have already been spoken over this hex, she told her that you will be held liable for any type of like thing that manifests in that person's life, but just know that it will come true if you give this hex to the individual. Now, I left off saying that she left this medium with this hex in her possession, and a lot of weird things started to happen. Now, like things like she kind of felt like something heavy was just around her presence, and she also said that they were taking different photos and like different photos that we would take on this trip, and there would be this little orb that would be right around on like her corner, like on her shoulder, in any of the photos that were taken. And it wasn't just 1, 2, 3 of the photos. Any of the photos that my friend was in, that orb was present. So she started to get kind of freaked out. And it took a while too, because this friend is not particularly religious or spiritual in nature. Like honestly, she went to New Orleans and sat with this medium and then accepted this hex on some play things. But that's the thing about New Orleans in itself. And a lot of things that were things like, African spirituality are like very rooted in there, where we get things like hoodoo and voodoo and stuff like that. Well, she started to really feel like there was a lot of like creepy things that were happening. And so she started to get really freaked out because in all these different photos, only post having sat with this medium, this particular like orb was in the photo with her. Now, mind you, this has probably been like overnight at this point. So the next day we go back to the place where she sat down with this particular medium, this psychic. And so we go back to this place and she's asking around like, hey, who knows what her name was at this point. I can't remember, but she was like, hey, is so-and-so still here? Like I sat with them and I really need to talk to him. It's like really urgent. And they were like, oh, well, like she's not in right now. I'm not sure when she's going to come back. I actually don't know if she's coming back in today, but I can sit with you if there's something that you have any questions about, et cetera, et cetera. Because keep in mind, like this was like a shop where it was like also like people who dabbled in, astrology and stuff like that, which is like also divination, a subset of witchcraft. And so she sat down with this new girl. And she said, and she told her about the reading that she had, and she told him about like the things that came up and the things that came up in the cards and the tarot. and things that she had like kind of like spoken over her life. And then she pulls out this hex. Now, mind you, this hex has like a little bag with a bunch of different herbs and a lot of like kind of like twigs and sticks, and it had like certain types of like string in it too as well. And she like pulled it out, and as soon as she pulled it out and put it on the table, the medium was like, "Get that the F away from me." Yeah, she wanted no parts in that. And she said, like, "Get that away from me. I don't know like what the conversation that you all had. I don't know what's latched onto that. And like, you're telling me that you saw her yesterday, but I don't know what type of like, you know, downloads that you all received. I don't know what type of spirits had like spoken over this. Get that away from me immediately." Now, my friend's flipping out because like she knows that like something has absolutely like changed from the time that she sat down with this medium to now, and she just wants to get rid of it. She wants no part of it. And so the medium's like backing away, and she was literally about to be like, "You all need to leave like right now." And so she was like, "Well, what do I do? Like, what do I need to do with this? Like, I don't want to have this anymore. I don't want to give this to anyone." And the medium told her, like, "There's only like a couple of options that you're going to have. Like, either you need to go through with it and you need to go ahead and like pass over the hex over to whoever you're choosing, or you have two options and be able to kind of like dispel and like cancel out this hex. You can either go put this on the front porch next to like the front door entrance of a church, and you can burn it, or you can throw it into the Mississippi River." Yes, those were her two options. And so we leave there, and I'm kind of just like dumbfounded. Like, I didn't even know what to say, because mind you, when she came out from like getting this hex from the first time, we didn't even know that's what she received, right? So she was telling us all this, and like really like we ain't trying to have no parts in it. There's any other like, I don't know what you done got yourself into. So immediately, so she's calling an Uber so she can find the easiest way to get some type of access to the Mississippi River so she could throw it in there. So she talked to some locals, and we ended up like going with her to like Uber, not too far where we were staying, where there was like this like kind of like we could actually see the river like passing, but it was like this fence that was like preventing you from actually like being next to the riverbank, which sounds pretty on brand because of safety, right? And so out of her own desperation, my friend, she gets on this fence and she's climbing over, and she's getting caught in all of these different types of like wiring because it's like such a rusty fence. And so she tosses it, throws it over the fence, and then she throws it into the water. And so like she says it got into the water. I don't really know. It looked a little shaky to me if it actually got into the river or not, if it was just like on the riverbank. But she was so freaked out because of that. And mind you, like when we were taking the photos again, the orb was gone. That blurred orb figure that was like near her shoulder and her face, it was no longer there when we took photos from that moving on from the trip. Okay, so we talked about vampires, we talked about mediums and psychics, but let's talk about something else. Let's talk about spirits, let's talk about ghosts, let's talk about demons. So another thing that's very prominent in the history of New Orleans is Marie Laveau, and she is deemed as like basically like the hoodoo queen. I won't use this particular video to go into the intricate details in regards to what she dabbled in and like who Marie Laveau is, but she does have a shop in New Orleans that's like off of Bourbon Street, and so we went to that particular shop just to kind of like look around. Now, on this particular outing and this trip, I'm with one of my cousins and two of my friends. And so we're in the shop, we're just kind of looking around. It's about time for them to close. So the clerk is like basically telling everyone like, hey, we need to close down. This is about in the next like 4 to 5 minutes. If you have any purchases, go ahead and bring them up to the front. Otherwise, have a good rest of your night. And so we're leaving out, and like I'm the last one who's coming out. So I'm right behind one of my cousins who happens to have dreads. And so I look up, and like when we're walking out, because there's like these like wooden there's a wooden kind of like a patio, and then these wooden steps. So we're walking out of the shop, and then like as soon as I look up, I see 3 or maybe 4 of his locks slowly come up from the back of his head and then pull him back, and he goes flying and hitting to the ground. So I'm looking at him, I'm like, are you good? And so I offer my hand to like help him up. he doesn't even take my hand. He jumps up, he runs back into the shop and like goes back over to where like the like just different consignment and like touristy keychain type of knickknack session is. Like he like rummages around something in his pocket and then he like comes back. He's like, yo, let's go. And the clerk's looking like, the clerk is looking kind of confused. I'm confused. And I'm like, okay, let's go. On our walk back to the hotel, and he's like shook, like he's like not really talking. He's like kind of walking fast ahead of us, and so I kept catch up to him. And I was like, "Are you good? Like what's wrong?" And he was just like, "No, yeah, like I'm good." And I was like, "Okay." So we get back to the hotel because we're gonna get ready to go out to Bourbon Street, and so he's still kind of acting weird, and like because his vibe is just off from the time that we went into the Marie Laveau shop into the place that we are now, back in the hotel. And it's like, no, but for like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? And he was just saying like, okay, like I was like, I'm good, but like I took like a keychain like from that shop, and I feel like somebody or something pulled my hair. And I'm like, what? And I was like, so basically you tried to steal from Marie Laveau's like consignment shop. He was like, yeah, but like, and he was just like, yo, I don't think I want to go out anymore. And I'm just like, okay. So essentially when he got up and he ran back into the shop, it was him putting back that keychain because like he felt like something was just off with that whole scenario. So yeah, when people say like you need to be careful and mindful about when you go to Mardi Gras, it's not just Mardi Gras, it's New Orleans in general.
People really need to take black magic seriously because you just don't know what is you just don't know what is on the other side. You don't know what is protecting someone. You don't know what energies someone is using. You don't know what demons they're messing with. You just don't know. But it's better to be safe than sorry because
Are the Carter brothers of New Orleans just another urban legend, or is there some truth to the story? Let me know what you guys think at the end. So this story takes us to New Orleans in the 1930s. And the story goes that in 1932, a young girl escaped from this house here. The house in question belonged to two brothers, John and Wayne Carter. When the girl finally found police officers, she told them an absolutely horrifying story. She told police that she had been held captive and even had her wrists cut, and that the two brothers would drink her blood. And to prove this, she also showed the police officers her wrists that were fully bandaged up. And furthermore, she also said that she would take them to the house themselves so they can see everything. So police arrived to the house and the two brothers are not there. So having no other choice, the police break into the home. And when they looked inside, it was a scene out of a horror movie. Inside the home were at least another dozen people who were no longer alive. And surprisingly, there were 4 more captives that were still clinging on to life. And police could clearly see that their wrists had all been bandaged. And so since the two brothers were not at their home, the police decided to wait out inside the house in order to ambush them. When the two brothers finally walked back into their home, it apparently took 7 or 8 police officers to get a control of them. Another version of the story says that the two brothers managed to fight off all of the police officers and were seen leaping off of the balcony into the darkness. Once the two brothers had been captured, they said something very shocking to police. The two brothers apparently asked the police officers to just end their lives right away, because otherwise they would just go on a huge killing spree since they could not stop themselves. And they also said that the urge for blood was just way too strong. And that particular piece of information is what led many people to believe that the two brothers were actually vampires. But the court system believed otherwise and determined that the two brothers were indeed human, and so they were sent to trial. And of course they were found guilty and sent to be executed. And they were then laid to rest in a family vault in New Orleans. However, years later, when another member of their family passed away, they were going to be buried in the same family vault. And so when the vault was finally opened, everyone was absolutely shocked to discover that the Carter brothers were no longer in the tomb. And ever since then, there have been reported sightings of the two brothers all over New Orleans, and a majority of them come from them being on their balcony in the middle of the night. But let me know what you guys think. And for more crime, creepy, and unbelievable stories, check out my YouTube. The link is in my bio.
Okay, I posted this video of like a vampire on some talk show not that long ago, and since then I've been sent all these videos of supposed vampires, right? So get this, I mean, these people walking through a train station look vampire-ish, but get this one.
I may be unpleasant looking on the outside, but you're ugly on the inside.
And look at them eyes, but then he's definitely got the teeth. Now this one's just weird.
When was the last time you fed?
I prefer a nice liver, but I may change my mind at any time. You look very tasty, but I think I like you. Would you like to stay for tea, my friend?
Now the glowing eyes can be explained by the light probably, but what is with them teeth?
Wow.
So how you're a vampire and you're 210 years old.
Correct.
How do you live so long? Do you drink blood?
We do not condone drinking blood. That is my default answer.
But I do.
Kings, queens, and everybody in between. I don't know if you know or not, but there are vampires in New Orleans. Let's talk about this. So basically, if you read the Anne Rice classics, they speak of it. They speak of a place that you can go in New Orleans, a bar, where vampires reside. Now, people get it misconstrued. There are vampires that will suck, pause your blood, but that is not the only type of vampire. There are different tribes of vampires. I think the ones that do the blood, they're more ancient. You know, blood magic, blah, 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 you know, kind of coincides with that. But they're also like energy vamps. But I didn't physically come in contact with one. However, I was in the vicinity. So basically me and a few friends of mine, I said about 4 or 5 of us, but it was only 2 of us actually venturing out. We went to a bar to get some drinks. We went to this bar, and the bartender was like super racist. It was a female. She was super racist. Like, we had to literally force our presence in her face for us to serve us a drink. And when I got my drink, I said, fuck this and this, fuck you and this drink. So I didn't pay for it. She made the drink. It was exquisite. It took her a lot of effort, and I left it there and didn't pay for it. Now, so we started looking, and I'm very into, if you ever read all the Anne Rice books, you know, the ones that you know, Interview with a Vampire, Queen of the Damned, if you've read those, there is a lot of like innuendos to vampirism, real vampirism in New Orleans, okay? And so I'm a little intoxicated. Me and a friend of mine, we're both a little intoxicated. So we said, we're going to go find this bar. Now, you really have to know New Orleans to go to one of these bars. We went to the bar, and so we both said, we're going to focus. We're going to focus on one person. Now, we didn't know, I'm pretty sure everybody that's there isn't one, but in this case, we focused on one person. Now, we were there for about 45 minutes before we got any quote-unquote action. But we picked out a guy. And the guy was like, once the guy knew that I was looking at him, he focused on me. Now, when he focused on me, I felt like I was in the bottom of a pool. Have you ever been in a pool where you don't really hear anything and you're able to hear your heartbeat? That's how I felt. And we chose to look at the same guy. So he's like, I hear my heart like, boom, doop, 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 doop. I hear my heartbeat. And I'm freaking out because I felt this way before when I was high, okay? But it was like, I was so taken by it. I was like, you ever been like, have you ever knowingly been in a dream and you're trying to wake up? That was my dilemma. I was trying to wake up. I feel like I was in some type of trance because this dude, I walked around and this dude's eyes did not leave me. And this is going to be important at the end of the story. His eyes would not leave me. Like I walk around and his eyes were just staring at me heavily. And once his focus was on me, he was the only thing I saw. Pause, because that sounds kind of homo. But that was the only thing I saw. That was the only thing it's like everything else was phased out. Like looking at you're looking at a video and you know how everything glazes out and you just see that. That's all I saw. And so I felt like I was in a fucking trance, and I was trying to break out of it, like I was trying to wake up, and eventually I woke up, and when I pulled myself out of it, I heard the music, I heard the people talking, and everything. And I tapped my boy. I hit him hard as fuck, because I hit him once, he didn't respond. I hit him again, and he finally moved. When this happened, it's like he woke up out of a trance, right? So we got the fuck out of there. We got back to the hotel, and I asked him, I said, bro, are you okay? He said, yes, because I was no longer high. I was no longer drunk. I was sober as hell. I was super sober. And when this happened, we got to the place. I said, okay. So I said, we was powwow, and we had our friends with us, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to tell you about my experience, because they were ussies, okay? They were scared to go anyway. And so, I told him about my experience. I said, dude, this dude locked his eyes on me and he never stopped looking at me. Never stopped looking at me. And my boy said, that's fucking impossible, bro. I said, why? They said, because the guy never took his eyes off of me. Mind you, we both have the focus of this person and he never moved his eyes from either of us. However, we're in different locations. Now, I'm not going to tell you the bar. Read the fucking book and find out for yourself. Enjoy the books, because the books, and get all the Anne Rice books, like not just the Interview with a Vampire and Queen of the Damned. I don't even think that's like the legit name for them, but that's the stories that you would know. But get the books, man. Read them. I promise you, bro, they're real. There are different versions of it, and I've heard someone say this, and it like made me like my heart skip a beat. Said there are some that really just they suck up, your energy, positive energy, sexual energy, bad energy, you name it, they can suck it. Pause. But man, cucumbers taste better pickled, man. But be careful. Stay dangerous.
The least thing you can do when someone doesn't like you is not entertain them or not be around them, leave alone them serving you, because you don't know what they're gonna do or put in your drink. So I feel like maybe the bartender put something in the drink, or maybe somehow the lady was connected with the guy who was staring at them. It's just yo.
Tell me a story about a time that you know that you saw something, but you don't ever tell this story because you know that no one would ever.
All right, so this is something that freaked me out, and every time I think about it, it's like it just gets creepier, and so I kind of stopped digging into it. This happened in 2000, probably 7. Whenever the Saints won the Super Bowl, and that detail will make sense when I get into this story. Whatever year the Saints won the Super Bowl was the year this happened, like somewhere around 2007, 8-ish. Anyways. So that year, the reason I remember that detail is because that was the year my brother and I decided to go to Mardi Gras for the first time. We said, well, this is a good year to go. We didn't know the Saints were going to win when we started planning it, but they happened to win. And so we, like, as we got closer after they won, we're like, oh, it's going to be, like, totally turned up. Everybody's going to be celebrating the Saints win. You know, Super Bowl is usually in February. Mardi Gras is in February. So, you know, the party's going to continue. So we go down to Mardi Gras. We have an amazing time. I might have been like 24, 25-ish, something like that. So definitely full party mode. There was a lot of alcohol consumption. I remember bits and pieces of the trip, but like we were drunk the whole time. It was bad, but we had a great time. Anyways, in the midst of this drunkenness, it's so weird that I remember this so vividly. We're walking through Bourbon Street, and everybody's partying, everybody's having a great time, right? And out of nowhere, I see this older woman, and I say older, I mean like, she gotta be like up in her 80s, like late 80s. Definitely looked out of place in the middle of Bourbon Street, right? It wasn't quite dark yet, but it was like dusk. It was like that right before the sun fully sets type of time. So it was darker, but it wasn't like pitch black yet. And this old woman looks completely out of place, and so like my eye is drawn to her, and like it almost seemed unreal that she would even be there, to be honest. And she was just standing there, and she looked at me, and she reached out and like grabbed my hand. And she looked dead in my eye and she said, "You have roots here." And then she let go of my hand and she walked away. Didn't say anything else. I didn't say anything to her. I just looked at her like, I don't know. That was strange, right? I forgot all about it. Came home, told everybody about the amazing time I had at Mardi Gras. I didn't remember that happening until like a couple years later. When I say a couple years, a lot, like recently. So I guess more than a couple years later. And this is where it gets weird. So my dad passed away in October of 2022. Now, when he passed away, as I think most people do, like you start looking into family histories and, like you find old photo albums and documents and you start discovering things about, just stuff that the family's never talked about. Anyways, throughout this, sort of funeral planning process, I found out that I have family on my dad's side that were originally from New Orleans. When I found that out, it brought back the memory of that woman immediately, like vivid, like it just happened yesterday. And it freaked me out, and now I'm at a place where I'm afraid to look into this because the way she said it almost made me feel like there was some darkness to it. I don't know. I've always been sort of drawn to supernatural things, but I don't give into it because I'm afraid of that stuff. I'm a Christian. I don't feel like that's of God, and so I'm like, nope, leave it alone. But it made me wonder, do I have family that was into that? I don't know. And the craziest part is I've always been drawn to New Orleans. Ever since that first trip, I've been to New Orleans probably five or six times now through the years. And I always tell anybody you ask, I always tell that's my favorite place to go. And the only time I really partied like that was that first time for Mardi Gras. Every time I go, I love it. And it's really for the history, the mystery, the sort of darkness in the city. I don't know. It just intrigues me so much. But in a scary way, because I'm always I tiptoe around stuff. I'm like, nah, it's too far. I don't want to get too deep into it. But I don't know. So anyway, that's my weird story of creepiness, and I feel like the story's not done though. I don't know. I just feel like something is going to tie it together in the future, and I'm going to sort of put the pieces together and see what those roots are. Because I don't know. I don't know this woman. I still see her face, but for some reason I fully believe her. And once I found out about having family there, that kind of verified it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll see her again and I'll ask her questions. Who knows? Anyway.
If I was in that situation, I would have followed her. You're not going to make me overthink for nothing. Please just tell me what you mean. Let's end it here. Let's end this here. But I don't know. You can't make this up. You just can't. All these people coming out and claiming that they've had these experiences is just crazy. You can't just make it. It can be a coincidence. It can be. Wow.
There's a lady on TikTok talking about her encounter with vampires, so I might as well talk about mine. This New Year's Eve, I was driving Lyft and I picked up an order, and it ended up being at a place that used to be a church, but it wasn't a church anymore, obviously, if you saw the festivities that was going on. There were people with cloaks and dark hair and heavy eyeliner, and there was a red glow from the building coming out. 4 guys got into my car. As soon as they got into the car, I felt a chill. And yes, it was winter, but it was a different kind of chill. I turned around and looked at them, and I immediately knew they were vampires. And it wasn't even just a thought. It was more so a knowing. Before they got into the car, I was thinking maybe they were devil worshippers because I had seen a goat head and the typical symbols that you see associated with that. But I was like, no, these are vampires. There were 2 brunettes and 2 blondes. They all had blue eyes. Not that that mean anything, but their eyes were almost hypnotically blue. They were so clear, you could see through their, like, not their soul, but I can't even describe it. Their skin was white, but not white like crayon white, but it was very pale. But it was not a pale like, you know, some like white people are like, oh, I'm so pale. Even like red, people with red hair, how pale. It was it was still a different kind of pale, because even regular people, when they're pale, there's still some warmness to their skin. Like their skin looked cold. I don't know how to describe it, but it was more so the feeling of me knowing. Immediately, I start to panic. My heart is racing. I'm feeling like, is it too late to reject the call? Like, can I even ask them to leave the vehicle? And then I started thinking, okay, if I am panicking and my blood pressure is rising, then I'm like pushing more blood through my veins, which may mean that I may seem more appetizing to them. This is all stuff that's going through my mind.
Yo.
The man behind me, the blonde who was like in the middle, touches my shoulder, and immediately it's like somebody poured warm honey over me. Like, that is the calm just spreading down my body. It was like immediately I felt relaxed, almost like I was in a trance, kind of there, but like watching myself. I can't even really describe it. And I knew at that moment that I wasn't necessarily in danger. So then the guy is like, well, our car is only a few blocks away, which I could tell from looking at the app. And he's like, but before we get there, we need you to answer a question. And you have to think very carefully about this. So now I'm like, okay, this answer is going to determine if I go home to my children or not. And it could just be my imagination and like me jumping the gun, and he could have been joking, but it didn't feel jokey. So he's like, okay, well, we have 2 separate cars. How would you group us together? Who should ride with who? What? So I'm like, I look back at them, and they're smiling and they're kind of giggling. Now their teeth don't look like regular teeth, but they don't look like the typical vampire teeth either. But they definitely did not look like human teeth. Their canines were a little bit more pronounced, but not in a dramatic fake way. I can't even freaking describe it. And actually, if I had to describe them, to sketch them out right now, I couldn't even, because it's like they're a memory, but not like a typical memory, like a memory behind a memory. I can't describe it. But anyways, I knew it. I'm like, you're vampires. Yes. I heard the answer in my head. No, I'm looking at them through the, because I'm like, if they lunge for the jugular, I'm gonna crash us all. But I grouped the opposite hair colors together. And the guy said, well, why'd you do that? I said, I don't know, it just felt right. He said, excellent choice. He took out his phone and he's like, I'm gonna start my car now. And I'm like, you can start your car from my car? And he's like, yeah, but we like you. You'll get home safe. Good. Like, you'll get home safe tonight. Have a good night. And I was like, yeah, I was kind of thinking that, you know, doing Lyft on New Year's Eve could be dangerous, because like, who knows what kind. I was trying to make it seem like I didn't think they were the danger, but just let them know, like, in case they heard me panicking. Who fucking went and saw the vampire? But anyways, they got out and they gave me my biggest tip of the night. You would think that would have been my last ride for the night, but no, I kept going. I made it home, and I didn't tell any other person about this story, because, like, are you supposed to share vampire stories? I don't know. However, I just did. So just know that there are other beings in this world besides us, and maybe they're not all so dangerous.
The dark side of housekeeping that nobody talks about, the paranormal activity, especially when you're working graveyard. I don't know if you guys know of Luxor Hotel. It's like this big black pyramid in Las Vegas. That's where I was, my first job, housekeeping. there's this weird background story of these construction workers that fell as they were building it. So I'm doing a room, I'm on I believe the 13th floor. That was a red flag right there. The number 13 is just infamous for being all kind of bad. I'm on the 13th floor and I'm doing my rooms, and this is around like New Year's Eve, so it's packed, but everybody's like, it's Vegas, so it's nighttime, nightlife, everybody is doing their thing. Nobody's really in the rooms. Everybody's out and about, you know, just doing the Vegas thing. It's so quiet during graveyard. It's so fucking quiet. You can hear yourself breathing sometimes. Like, if you can't hear the music or anything, you can hear yourself breathing. And I get chills when I still think about this. I hear this voice say, "Excuse me, ma'am." And I'm in the bathroom. So like the bathrooms are fairly close to the door. So when you're cleaning the rooms, you have your car parked in front of the door. So I come from the bathroom thinking that person's right there, because that's how close it sounds to me, thinking that they're right there by my cart. I go out to the cart. Baby, there's nobody fucking there. There's nobody fucking there. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, maybe they were just like, it was just like a high bye kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe they were drinking, just saw me like, "Excuse me, ma'am." So I go back to cleaning and I'm cleaning out the sink this time, but I hear it again. "Excuse me, ma'am." You know, like more of like a, "Excuse me, ma'am." Like trying to get past me or something. I hear it again. I look and it's fucking cold, like right in front of me. So I'm like, oh no, this ain't that, bro. I done seen too much, or too much in life. Like, I'm not about to go out like this. I closed that door so quick. I got the fuck out of that room. I closed it, went on to the next room. Leave it for the next. Like, I'm done with this. I already was getting like a creepy, weird ass vibe. And if you know, there are a lot of stories that people, they see like silhouettes, black silhouettes. Sometimes people will see people running at them that aren't there. You'll hear things will move. That is just the very first instance. You guys like and comment if you want to hear more.
That's not bad. Sweeter taste. You get the fatty acids, you know.
Oh, that's good.
I can tell when people are a little bit low on their magnesium and potassium.
What?
I can tell when they're not getting enough fatty acids. And because of the flow, I can also tell if they're not drinking enough.
As a psychologist, I think we're talking about people caught up in a story, caught up in a kind of melodramatic ritual. People will go into cosplay and other dramas because it's...
We have children.
Yes.
Do any of your children, do you feel that they're vampires?
They have gifts and capabilities unlike children around them. I can't out them because they're school teachers and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But my son, he's more of a spiritualist, and he's very, very advanced for his age. And
tell me what happened with your daughter.
My daughter was actually taken from me because of who I am as a person, as an artist, and my supposed darker abilities, which I'm not a dark person.
Do you miss her?
Of course. Her birthday's on Halloween, and this is the worst
Her birthday's
month.
on Halloween?
Yeah, and my son was born on the day of the Last Supper.
Wow.
So this is, of course, who wouldn't miss their child?
Yeah. I understand that when you have enemies, you can do something to make them suffer.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me what happened when there was a person that was cruel to you and you did something to them.
I don't like to project negative energies. I don't deal with negative energies. I'm a strong believer in karma. A lot of psychics and a lot of priests call me, I'm surrounded by light. And so when people say that, ooh, you're dark or you're evil, I'm like, actually, you're the evil one. But if people start to attack me, all I have to do is just project it. And it depends on the level of what people do to me. Humans, I'm sorry, they're very cruel, but some people go above and beyond cruelty. Like, if somebody shot your dog, you know, people would do that to me because they're afraid. Well, I basically step outside of myself. I commune with the universe or the gods that be. I'm very connected to God. I'm very connected to Jesus. So if people think that because I'm a vampire, I'm afraid of crosses, I'm wearing one right now.
So tell me what happened to that person. There was a person that was cruel to you.
Oh, yes.
And you
her
confronted
sister
the person.
committed suicide 2 days later after I told her, do not cross me.
And it's not necessarily what you do.
And it's not what I do, it's what the universe does to them. Because once again, I am completely, totally pure of heart person, and you attack a person that's pure of heart, your karma's coming back to you instantly, baby. Don't even worry about it. I don't even have to do nothing.
So her sister committed suicide because you willed it to happen?
No. I just told her it's going to happen. You are attacking me, mark my words, it's going to happen, and there was witnesses. But there's so many stories that I don't will it to happen because that's bad karma, once again. It's just, I know it's going to happen. Stop it, honey child. You are going to hurt yourself. I'm warning you right now as a friend.
Kristen is speaking to her daughter when this happens.
What kind of alien or ET are you?
A blue avian.
When do they come visit you?
Like at probably like 3 in the morning, I think.
Oh, do you go anywhere?
Yes, I go to really important places.
What do you do on your planet? What's your job?
My job is to just like get all the stuff ready and if people are pooping, that's my job to help them. And sometimes I have to go in our office and get the tools to just a different kind of surgery. It's not like where you cut them open. It's like a different kind of surgery, just where you look through their skin to see like this, but you don't cut them open at all, and you don't even use any tools. You just look around their skin because our skin is like bluish, clearish. So, yeah.
Curious, Kristen decides to look up these blue avians, and what she finds is quite shocking. Various depictions of these blue avians can be found online, as well as hundreds of accounts from other individuals who've had very similar dreams. If you look closely at the video, you can see a soft glow around her daughter. After uploading, thousands of users flooded the comments, saying that they too have had similar experiences, and they truly believe what the little girl is saying. What do you believe?
It's like a different kind of surgery, just where you don't cut them open at all, and you don't even use any tools. You just look around their skin because our skin is like bluish, clearish. So, yeah.
Let me explain something about fangs. This is the part of the video where everybody becomes a vampire expert, but those same people don't believe in vampires. Y'all humans are weird. Fangs are like your saliva. You don't salivate unless you smell food, you think about food, you're about to eat some food. Fangs are the same way. Fangs are not meant to just pop out whenever. You know, this ain't True Blood. Like, stop with the movie shit. Stop with the movie shit, y'all. Don't stop thinking about all of that shit. When you force fangs out, it hurts, right? Because your body is not naturally opening up for the fangs to drop out. It's like if you guys were taking a shit or trying to take a shit and it's just not coming and you force that shit out, right? What happens after that? You guys will get hemorrhoids. Same thing. It's because your body wasn't naturally trying to push that shit out. Y'all need to drink more water, by the way. Drink more water. Mind your business, drink some water. It's like lifting something that is too heavy for y'all to lift. What's gonna happen? You guys will pull a muscle. You know, you'll get a hernia. Same thing with fangs. Like right now, my gums hurt. And these are kind of pushing out a little too much. That my teeth aren't supposed to pop out like that. That's too far. That's too far. What's another thing y'all were talking about in the comments? Oh, sunlight. Vampires been here way longer than humans, okay? I don't know which one of y'all started that rumor, but that's a rumor. It was a rumor made to make y'all feel safe. Sunlight. I'm in it right now.
We gotta go to the store just like y'all, you know, like stores close at a certain time. I can't be waiting until nighttime to go shopping at the supermarket. You feel me? We just like y'all. We just like y'all. We just, you know, a little stronger. You know, drink blood. I like these questions though. Keep them coming. I like these questions. Oh, I'm like, you hear me slurring? I can't even talk right. My gums hurt. But keep these questions coming, you know. Oh, just so you know, I might not make it through this series. I've been getting the true death threats. True death is the death of a vampire. I don't know why they call it that, because we're not dead. I'm not dead. I'm not dead. And that's another thing. Why y'all? Don't let Dracula fool you. Okay. I kind of feel like the more I show you, the more you guys won't believe me. But that's okay. I'm used to this now. Hi, Mama. That's me. This is me in 1919, I believe. I was trying to be an actor. I've always been trying to make my way into film, even 100 years ago. I kind of switched over to screenwriting, as some of you might know, just because it's a hard industry to crack, you know. Back then, they didn't really allow too many black people in silent films, you know, so you really had to be animated to kind of let them know what you're capable of, you know. I look back at this picture now and I hate it, you know, like I feel like I'm pandering to a certain demographic so that I can fulfill my dreams. Yeah, I hate it. But yeah, that's me. That's me.
Is it possible that Abraham Lincoln was in fact a vampire, rather than a vampire hunter, as the popular movie suggests? After all, his coffin was buried 10 feet deep in a steel cage and covered with 2 tons of concrete. But the real reason for that is a bit more mundane than the notion that Abraham Lincoln was suspected of being one of the undead. You see, in 1876, there was a plot by a Chicago crime boss named Big Jim Kinnelly to steal Abraham Lincoln's body from his tomb and hold it ransom in exchange for the release of one of his counterfeiters and $200,000, which would be approximately $5 million or so today. 2 of his men were to carry out the plot, and they were joined by a 3rd man, whom they did not know was a Secret Service agent, and they actually made it into the tomb, but of course they weren't able to get the body. And overall, between 1865 and 1901, Abraham Lincoln's body was moved 17 times, in part because of concerns that his body would be stolen, and also in part because of construction and renovation to his tomb. And in addition to moving his casket 17 times, it had been opened 5 times, and that was due in part to just having to check to make sure that it had not been stolen. And eventually his surviving son was basically like, hey, enough is enough. We're going to bury this thing 10 foot deep in a steel cage and cover it with 2 tons of concrete. And that is how it has remained ever since. Sleep well, friends, and memento mori.